Good morning, everyone. My name is Alex Kozloff. I'm a Director of Content at Claro Enterprise Solutions. And thank you for joining today. And today we're going to talk about workplace services in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. And joining me today is John McGurgan, who heads up our professional and managed services practice. And John has several decades of experience. Sorry, John. in this space, specifically in the workplace services, end user computing, and over the past 6 months, he's been on the front lines, working with our customers and with businesses to deal with the situation and try to move forward in terms of both the immediate kind of crisis and then at this point. Starting to think about how to move forward. So John will be sharing his insights and observations. So today we want to look at three kind of themes or areas. And first we want to touch on some of the lessons learned and issues, what went right, what went wrong in the immediate aftermath of the business shutdown. When businesses had to, very rapidly move to this remote work environment, just kind of, keep the lights on. And second, we will look at some of the issues and challenges and opportunities we have today in, what everyone's calling the new normal, which I think everyone would agree involves a lot of uncertainty. So. John's going to talk a little bit about what the current environment is and what it means for decision makers dealing with IT services and making sure that teams are productive and safe. So, and then finally, we'll talk more specifically about specific things that leaders need to do to enable the workplace of the future, both in terms of the near term and the long term. So rather than we'll try to get a little less conceptual and drill down into more specific actionable things that people should be thinking about. So first off, lessons learned from the pandemic. And John, you've talked a lot about how the pandemic kind of exposed a lot of existing fundamental weaknesses and flaws in existing service delivery models. So why don't you talk a little bit about that and specifically about the phenomenon of shoulder tapping, which I know is a big part of this, of the lessons learned.
Yeah, Alex, thank you so much for inviting me and having me do a little discussion today. Yes, I will show my age. How long I've been in this industry, but hopefully it can benefit other organizations to kind of take maybe what we have seen and what I have witnessed over the course of time and help evolve that into their companies. I think the biggest that we saw that came out actually like right around the March-April timeframe. With the pandemic that hit was just the uncertainty and people weren't prepared for it. There were a few organizations out there that were forward thinking as far as, what they needed to do to be prepared for that remote workplace, anytime, any place area. But probably the majority of the organizations, that was kind of always said within their companies, but they never really moved fast enough to get to embrace that work anytime, anywhere type of structure. And I think the pandemic actually posed companies to really start, I guess you could say, increasing the speed on how they got to deliver that to their staff. The norm usually was, every now and then you got 4 or 5 people that were able to work from home during that week. It kind of flopped around, but now you're talking anywhere between 2, 3, 4,000 people, your whole company working from home. So where their budgets were probably broken down to specifically hit certain things that they could do year over year, now it was, all right, we really got to, increase, we really got to move this to the the forefront now. So I think some of the biggest things from a reactive approach was some basic stuff. It was, do they have enough laptops? Do they have enough work devices for the employees to use as they're working from home? Can they incorporate the existing devices that they maybe have at home into their back office of their network? Is their internal structure built to support that remote workforce working from home? And that structure on the back end could be their servers, maybe they were in the process of moving things to the cloud, but mainly is their support system, is their service desk, whether it's internal, external, or people that are in-house, linking back to the shoulder tapping, able to take care of their end users' problems when the majority of their staff is now working remotely. Go ahead.
Sorry, so just when you talk about the service delivery specifically, I know you mentioned and we've talked a lot about how these issues kind of snowballed, and when more people are working from home, more people have questions and problems, more people have to get stuff set up, and then there are fewer people to address the issues, and then when the issues don't get addressed, the devices don't get updated, the virus programs don't get updated, and then that creates a snowball effect. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it did. I think the biggest thing that I witnessed was just the support mechanism on the back end and the connections from their home devices back into the network. I think those are the biggest problems, and that all feeded back into their support system, service desk, call center, whatever they had built for that organization. Those organizations, I think, were used to maybe, you have a couple thousand calls a month. Now all of a sudden you're double, tripling that from a call volume perspective, and people were waiting at longer times. So I think that was the biggest thing that I saw was, you're moving, when you get your PC, some people I know experienced this, my neighbors experienced this, the first time they ever worked from home, they got a box that showed up at their door and they had no idea what to do from there. So they were on the phone for 2, 3, 4 hours to try and get this thing set up. So the reactive approach of not having enough people to take care of those problems, or on the back end, I think that was the biggest thing. Companies were used to being in an office environment where they can call their service group that's sitting maybe downstairs and have them come up and just fix their problems. At that point in time, there was nobody there. So they were looking at the 100% give somebody a phone call and work on their call center to get them set up. And they didn't have enough people to actually take care of the volume that was actually coming in. So they were looking for organizations like ours to help tap into that. Our organization actually has, 200, 300, 400 people that are sitting on a call center desk at a time. So they were looking to tap into that to really help their user get up to speed. So, that was the biggest thing that I saw, was that they didn't have enough people to take care of the problems that called in. It took way longer than anticipated, and it didn't have enough equipment actually to get out there to the users. So there was a big spike in hardware purchases right around March and April. That time frame, that spike went very high. There was a lot of outreach to help with additional call support for their end users. So that kind of, from the March and April timeframe, that's where a lot of the reactive design started to come to play. I think people were, just really trying to. It was so much. It was, you're taking a big ball of items and issues, and you're trying to squeeze it through a small little hole. So people worked through it. I think it was, for the most organizations, I think it moved along. But I do think we're starting to get out of that. I think now things are starting to stabilize. And I think people are really looking now to where to take this moving forward for the next few years.
All right, well, let's do that, and let's talk about what we're calling the new normal, what if you look you know, in the context of what you just described in terms of the scramble and the, you know, just basically, again, trying to keep the lights on, in the context of the past 6 months, or maybe the past initial two, three months, and then the lessons we've learned from that, and the, well, let's start with you know, what the new normal represents. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a lot of uncertainty, but what are some of the specific things that you know, you and our clients are thinking about in terms of, you know, identifying the uncertainties, but still, okay, well, how are we going to move forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still an evolving process, I think, right now. I think if we look at, I guess you could take two scenarios here. One is basically how we can support the new normal, and also what we're going to do with the new normal, design for it. You know, I firmly believe, from talking to the clients that we have talked to, and a lot of our, you know, enterprise clients as well as mid-level clients right now, they're looking to advance their technology design for a complete remote workforce. You know, I think what they're also doing right now is realigning their budgets. So I think from a budget perspective, I think in the past it was always technology, okay, we can throw X amount into technology, or if there are items or concerns, they're looking to kind of cut out of that criteria, okay, the technology budget a little bit if they had to. But now I think it's going to change. I think the technology budget is going to increase now and drive the focus of where we want to be in 2021, 2022. I think we are going to be evolving to work any place, anytime, anywhere for an organization using any device, you know, whether it's bring your own or a device that they would supply. So I think there's a twofold process. I think the big thing that's going to happen from a internal model is cloud design, cloud support, cloud management is all going to be taking a precedence right now. I think there are going to be a few items that are still going to be in a specific brick and mortar, DR backup, et cetera. But I do think 90% of the applications and the design of how you do your business every day, working wherever, is all going to be increasing to move things up to the cloud. So a lot of that infrastructure is going to be moving to a cloud-based design, and then it's going to link right into a full support model on the front end. So essentially, the service desk, as I call it, is going to evolve from a call center, which is basic call and route, to a true level 1 through level 4 type of structure of a support. And when I say level 4, usually there is not a level 4. You know, it's usually a level 1, level 2, level 3 type of structure. But the level 4 is going to be really focused and designed on true remote monitoring and service, that they're going to be monitoring, you know, all of their servers, all their applications, all of the support mechanism in the cloud. So it's going to physically evolve. That's going to be the tip of the spear, I firmly believe, in the future. And the service desk is going to be the key point on how they react and solve problems, not one for the end user, but also for the design and the structure of organizations' infrastructure in the cloud.
And so, John, in the context of, again, you know, the lessons learned from the initial response and what you just described in terms of moving forward, how does that affect the what businesses need to do in terms of rethinking their sourcing models? You know, specifically in terms of, okay, what are we going to farm out? What are we going to keep in? How are we going to change the current mix, or should we change the current mix? And just that in more specific terms.
Yeah, I think the support staff, I believe, is going to start to shrink within organizations. There's going to be a core group that manages their infrastructure side, and the design and the vision and the strategy of where the organizations need to go. I do feel that everything from a server-based structure application is going to be moving cloud-based. Everything's going to be cloud-based. Office 365, Teams collaboration tools, everything's going to be moving cloud-based. I think the collaborations tools have taken a jump from March all the way to where we currently are today, where everybody's using Teams, Zoom, that as schools are using that all for the remote learning structure now. So I think that back office from a full design, from a cloud-based focus and a cloud-based support model is all going to be moving. I think organizations are going to modify their budgets and increase that, I guess you'd say, monetary gain to get them to that full outsourced managed cloud solution for their infrastructure and their design. I think from a support aspect, I think organizations are definitely going to be looking for a more robust service desk capability. So where I talked about having a true level 1 through level 4 type of structure for their service desk, companies are now going to actually be looking for those type of outsourcing organizations that can supply that full from 1 to level 4 type of design. Because if it's an in-house desk, there might be, you have what you have as far as maturing that desk. I think now it has to be, I guess you could say, it has to all be spontaneous. I mean, you have to have the ability to have the basic structure of a call that's coming in. I can't connect to the network from my laptop. To physically, my application went down. I really need to have that expert on the phone right now to try and find a way to bring that application back up. Mm-hmm. That might dive into, hey, we got to get to the applications on the cloud. We got to work with that provider to find out what's going on with that application. So that all has to be ready for a corporation or an industry right now, that they can rely on that full support from true basic to true advanced for their whole network and infrastructure.
And to take it a step further, from an industry perspective, we work with healthcare companies, with financial services firms, with retailers, and they each have very specific requirements around compliance around data, compliance around security. So within healthcare, that some HIPAA requirements are things like, if you're processing or managing HIPAA sensitive data, you need to have locked facility or locked boxes on your premises. You need to have a paper shredder on your premises. I mean, very specific kind of office oriented types of compliance requirements that I think was one of the big issues that everyone dealt with when we went remotely, where suddenly you weren't in the office, so you couldn't ensure that all the paperwork was locked up at the end of the day. So how is, if remote is here to stay and more people are going to be working from home, how is that going to impact the way contracts are written and requirements are written and industry standards are set, and how's that going to affect the way that customers and providers sort of define their approaches and their models and the real nitty gritty of their delays and contract terms?
Well, I think there are specific needs, okay, from so we say healthcare, from a HIPAA design and HIPAA requirement. But I can tell you a lot of the service organizations like ours, we physically follow specific criteria if we're actually working with specific parts of the government, a government, healthcare, whatever that may be. So we want to make sure that as we evolve into this new world, that service organizations are going to be rethinking, and they're going to actually be looking to make sure that they have those criteria set. They are approved from specific boards or specific certifications to make sure that we can physically support all that. From a SOC and a security environment, I mean, most people that completely have an outsourced SOC, and we have our own outsourced SOC and our own design, a lot of those criteria are all I guess you could say addressed. So we know, because we have a vast array of customers in all different verticals, we need to make sure that our security and our compliance perspectives align to what their vertical is. And if there's something that's actually needed in order to touch on that, to touch and get that customer, we would just have to go down that path and do it. But normally, from a SOC perspective, a lot of that stuff is covered. From a support and design perspective, if we're in that industry, we just need to make sure that we would work with them organizations to make whatever is needed from them to do the support on the back end from a data perspective. We just make sure we just align to that and do that support. I know when things are moving to the cloud design through Azure or whatever that may be from a cloud perspective, we can build out private clouds that specifically have things locked down to a point where it is only specifically in the cloud designed from a security perspective for that customer. And usually in the healthcare environment, that's what we kind of focus on to make sure that stuff is all following the proper protocols and dot our I's and cross our T's to make sure nothing can be compromised for that client.
Well, so I mentioned the the nitty gritty of the requirements. Let's move on and try to identify some of the specific things that businesses should be thinking about. And I mean, you've touched on all of these to some extent, but why don't you maybe start with deployment and the issue of you get a device shipped to your home, or you've got a big meeting tomorrow and your device breaks down, you need a new one. Talk a little bit about the logistics of getting stuff sent, getting stuff delivered, getting stuff sent to remote places, and how you can approach that. So that
yeah, I think most organizations from a deployment perspective, well, they're all working with some of the big suppliers in the industry, your Lenovo's, your HP's, and their infrastructure and their design in the back end from basically taking devices and imaging them to whatever the customer standards are all pretty much in place. They've been in place for a while now. I think the one biggest concern that I think we're seeing right now is sometimes the logistics side of it, where parts are coming from and how fast it takes to get them in here now. I think they're working through a lot of that now because most of the stuff is being imported in from overseas, and I think a lot of them are now because it was such a demand back in March and April for equipment. Now I think they have restocked, they have redesigned their approach, and actually have all the equipment stable right now, and they have it all where it needs to be. So essentially, what can actually be done, and especially now with delivery, I mean, there's now that you can order something on Amazon and it'll be here tomorrow. How fast it can turn around. I think there's going to be a twofold process. I think the first process is going to be organizations are still going to work with specific suppliers like Ardell's and et cetera to make sure that they can deploy and completely image and design their machines. And when it gets to the customer, all they really have to do is just plug it in and log on. I think that's one path that's going to happen. And then I think the next path is probably going to be where they're going to have criteria where you can use any of your equipment, your home PC, your home laptop, your home phone, whatever that may be. And they're going to have some software that's going to be able to partition those devices to make sure it can divide between work and home type of support. So I think we're going to be evolving more into a bring your own device structure, but I think there'll still be a criteria of devices that you're going to be able to be authorized to use for your company. And I think that's that's all going to be evolving shortly. But I do know that from a deployment perspective, the only thing that I think we were running into from the beginning of the pandemic to currently now was just how fast we can get something in the door. Mm-hmm. Now we supply from a deployment perspective, when we supply to home users, SD-WAN in a box, it physically does everything for you with your laptop, your design setup, as well as your internet connection and how you can hook right in and away you go. And I think a lot of people are going to be looking for that complete structure to send to their people working remotely, that physically they're going to be able to just, it's just going to be a very quick plug and play type of structure.
Mm-hmm. So now in terms of support, and you talked about this earlier, but I wanted to ask you to talk about one thing specifically, which is, it's actually a huge area that we could spend, hours on its own. And then, the whole issue of how to kind of change this service desk, the help desk, to take advantage of smart tools and just change the role of the service desk, help desk agent, so that, rather than, being measured and managed by the number of incidents they resolve and how quickly they can do it, and, show their productivity and effectiveness by how many incidents they resolve, kind of rethinking the whole approach and using smart tools, automation, whether it's doing password reset or whatever, so that the agents aren't doing kind of the mindless tasks and are doing more skills-oriented work, which then could require more time to solve an incident, but it creates greater value because the other problems are being taken care of by software or whatever. So, I mean, it's a kind of a fundamental change in how the process is measured and managed, but it's one we're seeing it that we're talking a lot about. So maybe talk a little bit about that and the kind of the new normal.
Yeah, I mean, the service desk support, I've always felt, like I said earlier in the conversation, it is going to be the tip of the spear for everything moving forward right now. The evolution of the agent, I think, is going to be where before you would have, your networking person that's sitting on site, your desktop support person that's coming out to fix your problems. And they would consider the call center agent as just like you said, well, password reset, that's all we need to call them for, or basic things to fix. My mouse is broken, please send me another mouse. I think that's all going to be going away. I think the majority of the support right now will be done on the desk. You will have high-end agents that are sitting on that desk to do all kinds of support. And all the basic stuff, I mean, from a password reset perspective, to your point, password resets in any organization we have worked with, when we looked at the data, that has always been the number one thing that people have called in on, even though they might have an automated agent that can help them go in and reset that password. It still was always the number one issue. I think right now with the AI tools and a lot of stuff that's coming into play from a technology perspective, and just how everything now is moving to a full service desk capability, for support, I do feel that feel and know that now the call center agents from an AI perspective for password resets will take precedence. So people will now be looking to call for more detailed problems to fix, opposed to just a basic password reset. And I think what's going to evolve with the password reset tools, I think it's going to be automated to a point where the system's going to, the tools are so intuitive right now, they're going to know when your password's going to expire, and it'll automatically resend you a new password. I think that's where it's going to start turning, the corner's going to turn for the automation tools moving forward. I think before you had to go in and reset your password by going through a little program that they actually have within companies. Right now, I think the systems are going to start to know where, your password's going to expire in 5 days. Boom, it's going to shoot you an email and say, here's your new password as of this date. When you log in with this password, you're going to be able to change it yourself to what you want. So they're not even going to have to be able to log in moving forward to change their password and go through a software tool to do it. It's going to automatically, intuitively send it to the customer, and they're going to do it automatically. And then the true support from a call center perspective is going to be taking precedence. I think, your application tools, I think everything from that's going to be able to be done within the cloud, it's going to be all supported through the call center support from level 1 to level 4.
So, and I confess, I've been a bottleneck on the password reset front with our help desk.
I think everybody has. I'm the same way. I mean, some people are just used to wanting to hear that person on the phone, and they're afraid to go in and actually take control of certain things, certain software tools to do that, to do that reset, if you know what I mean. Mm. I know that the tools that are coming out right now, I think corporations are going to set them up, since things are laid out from a cloud perspective now, where it's going to automatically just send you your new password. It'll automatically send you a temporary password, and then you're going to physically have to go in and physically change it to what you want yourself. So it's going to be more proactive than a reactive approach, because everybody waits till the last day to reset their password.
Right.
So I think now it's going to be taking more of an automated approach, and I think the tools, the AI that's all out there now, that's going to be taking the forefront, and then it's going to be shifting the true support model from a desktop agent to a network agent to the support center.
And so with regard to lifecycle support, and this is something that I want to talk more about with the mobile device management as well. But what's changing in terms of segmenting users and user requirements so that different users have just different applications, different needs, and how does that impact lifecycle support in terms of defining who gets what and how that gets managed in terms of updates, in terms of remote access obviously is a big part of it too. So
well, I think it's good. I think it's going to be a little easier now. I think now, like I said prior, there's the tools that are out there that can segregate your home device and your home usage from your personal usage. I think they're so advanced right now. I think it's going to take the Active Directory and the structure to the 10th degree. Now, since everything's from a cloud-based design, Microsoft has pretty much taken their tool structure and their design. You can take anything that you have, whether it's your own personal laptop or your phone, and corporations are going to be able to load a specific tool on there that's going to be able to divide things from internal to external. And that's pretty much going to be the way of the future. I think we're still going to be having devices and machines that are still going to be purchased through whatever corporation we're purchasing them through. But at the end of the day, I think the end user is going to be able to use whatever they have and then just go in and get it specifically partitioned and designed per what that person needs, from your phone to physically your laptop. Everything from a MDM management structure is going to be taking place because a lot of the applications are all designed now from a cloud-based perspective where you can assign tasks. Alex can have these applications, John can have these applications, Susie can have these two, and that's it. And that's what their specific focus and specific structure is. And that can be pushed down from their machine that's given to them by a corporation that actually is partitioned and designed through one of the manufacturing providers through a gold disk image or a specific focus on what they need. Or you're going to be able to buy your own machine, and then they're going to be able to remote in and actually load all the partitions for Susie, Alex, or John, and actually push that down through the internet.
So let's talk about security, and not in the whole cybersecurity strategy sense, but just some of the fundamentals from the end user perspective. And so specifically, protecting the user devices or the user access from the home office, and also the end user in terms of awareness and training and vulnerability relative to what we experienced in the pre-pandemic area when I think the threat level was different, and also just the environment was different. So what do we need to think about there?
What I see from an end user perspective is more of an education on the security side of the house. The tools that are out there now, they could specifically grab anything that needs to be grabbed through Mimecast or whatever it may be, whatever tool you're using. It can block things. It can block emails going out. They can set those parameters within the organization. Since everything's based off of a cloud design and a cloud structure, and within your network, it can set those parameters for you. I think the one thing that I'm seeing the most of it from end user perspective working from home is just the education of what not to do. We use a tool called KnowBe4 that we actually go out and we push that out to a lot of our customers, and we do monthly testing. We test the user. We train the user on what to look for, what not to look for, from a phishing capability, emails that are coming in that could be a concern or an issue, and specifically run tests every quarter, every month on specific users, and send out, I guess you could say, test emails, sample emails to see if they click, if they do this, or they go down that path. And then we can help over the course of time evolve the organization to train them on what to look for and what not to look for. Because as much as people say, people still go in and they're getting things, they're getting emails, they're getting text messages, and they're still clicking on it because things are designed so well that you think it's an actual UPS delivery coming to your house when essentially it's really not. So, you know, the education and the training design of what to teach the end users not to do is going to help corporations long term, because as much as you try to evolve the tools, there are still going to be people still trying to evolve the way they can get into their systems. So I think it's I guess you could say the awareness of the end user of what to do and what not to do is going to help corporations tighten down their security fundamental side.
And that the evolving part is so important because the threats are constantly changing. So I remember right after the shutdown, you know, you'd get a million emails saying, oh, you know, COVID updates in your area, click here. Yep. And, you know, a month later, it was something else. So that the ongoing awareness training, the ongoing tests that reflect the actual threats that are out there is what's so important.
And that's increased quite a bit. I mean, I think, especially our SMB sector has really taken that training to heart, you know, because most SMB customers, and they're smaller, you know, they have a real small IT support team, 1, 2, maybe 3 people, you know. So what we have noticed is they've increased their training and awareness training for their end users on the security perspective, because it helps them on the back end to secure and design what's going on moving forward.
All right, let's finish with mobile device management. And here, let's talk about, you know, how this represents an opportunity for IT to work as mobile devices become more important. What's the opportunity to work with different business units to segment user requirements and really tailor the mobile capabilities and policies to different user requirements, and how that helps the business in terms of costs, in terms of security, and just productivity?
I mean, I think right now, I think the world is turning more into the mobility device is bring your own. It's going to be bring your own device. The MDM solutions that are out there now through AirWatch, through Mobile Iron, I mean, you can name, we pretty much focus on the AirWatch side of the house. You can take somebody's device and partition that device very easily. You can partition that device to physically say, these are the pieces, these are the emails and the design that we're going to use for corporate. This is your personal stuff. And then when that person, if that person leaves, if that person moves on, there's ways to physically pull that data back and just leave that end user's device as a whole for them from a personal perspective. They're so far advanced from, you know, of where we were probably 2 or 3 years ago to where it is now. It's very easy to segregate from personal to work type of support. So a lot of our clients actually are, like I said, we use mostly AirWatch on how we do things, and on the Apple side, Apple has their own product that actually is out there that we have been working with, that physically can partition devices for your home to work type of support. So that's taking a forefront, aligning that specifically in with all the other global and mobile support that can be done, and incorporating that to one central location for support. So what we're seeing too is, when I say the level 4, we have a lot of our SMB customers that actually are coming to us, and that level 4 support center design is handling all their mobile device management structure. They own their tools on the inside, and they have a criteria when a new person comes in. These are their partitions and the design that has to be on their machine, and they're able to get in and actually set that for the customer.
So we've drilled down to some of the specific elements of a workforce services strategy. Let's step back with kind of a 2-part question. You talked a little bit about budgets and how you see budgets increasing in a lot of instances in the current environment. So, you know, talk a little bit about that, and also how, you know, we've over the last few years we've talked a lot about digital transformation, and I think one of the challenges with that has been nobody quite knows what it means. And so, talk about what IT leaders should be thinking about in terms of managing budgets, and how those budgets should be applied to kind of perhaps a clearer vision of what digital transformation is, and whether in fact the pandemic has clarified our understanding of what we want to accomplish with digital transformation.
Well, I like you said, sometimes nobody knows what digital transformation really means. For me, it's the same thing as saying managed services. That's such a gray area that can cover anything. Where I see digital transformation happening from what has happened just recently is the evolving of the evolution of true remote workforce. I think in the past, corporations that have always hired in their region. If you have a corporation that's sitting in Pittsburgh, for example, they're looking in the vicinity so people can come into the office and actually work and fill a role that they would need. I think right now, corporations are going to be able to look at this and pretty much say, I can hire anybody anywhere, since we're moving from we're a true remote support design shop. We can work anywhere. If I need a Spanish speaking person out of Mexico, I should be able to hire that person in Mexico. He could work there for XYZ company and do the same support that I would need if they're sitting in my brick and mortar location. So I think the expansion of your talent is a global talent now, not specifically designed to the region. And I think that ties into the budget perspective, because I think the technology of moving to that true remote mobile workforce is going to be increasing in the budget side. Corporations are going to look and say, hey, you know what? I have 15 buildings at my campus location, but you know what? I can actually cut that brick and mortar down because people are now working remotely, and we're able to take that savings from the brick and mortar and increase our technology budget to we're able to feed the remote workforce anywhere. I think corporations are definitely going to drive. I'm able to hire anybody, anywhere, at any location to support my company moving forward. And then the savings will be designed to more of a technology perspective and focus on that strategy, that vision moving forward. Because at that point in time, you're able to save money from a cost perspective on your hard locations, and reinvest that money into being able to work anywhere for the company. And also, you're able to probably do some cost savings to a point, because your employees might be a little bit happier. I read an article just the other day that people are actually satisfied at this. Sometimes some people are actually satisfied right now more because they're able to work from home. They have that flexibility to actually not take the bus anymore, not take the subway in anymore. So they're actually a cost savings for them they're seeing also, because they're able to work remotely. And then you're able to kind of tailor your salaries and your budgets around that.
Well, I think that's a good note to close on. And John, unless you have anything else you'd like to add?
No. Like I said, Alex, I appreciate your time, and hopefully, we identified my age in this business. maybe it'll help.
I can say it because I think I've got a decade on you in the industry.
But no, outside of that, no. I think if there's any other questions when people get the blog, or if there's anything that they possibly could bring up that maybe we could address or help with, I think Alex's contact information would be in there, and we can get a hold of them and just talk through some, maybe services or things that we can help with their organization, or just talk to them about what we're seeing and continue the conversation.
Yeah, but my contact is on the screen, so please do feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to point you in the right direction and get the dialogue going. So John, thanks very much for your time. Everyone have a great day and stay safe.
All right, thank you. Take care, everybody.